Joshua, are you back? Are you free to speak? Maybe if you remove the earphones, the headpiece. If you unplug that, maybe.
Well, in the meanwhile,
we still can hear you, Joshua. Could you ensure that on your screen you're not muted? I think that would be a good first step.
You see innovation already. South Africa makes a plan.
But he's really not muted. You'll see.
Oh yeah, he isn't.
Maybe Jerome can say something.
No, Joshua, we can hear you.
Oh, great. We can hear you, Joshua. Leonard, I was going to ask that you speak to the perspective from the media narrative standpoint. I think that might be a very good, interesting perspective to hear from.
Do you mean on Africa in general or the digitalization?
So digitization in Africa, especially with young people.
I mean, I think, so if you think about it, like the first thing that people do when internet comes online and what they can do without having to spend money online is communicate. So WhatsApp is huge across Africa. Telegram is growing really, really, really large. And this is really helping, we might say, oh, this is just talking. But, if I can talk to somebody in another place and ask them for prices for things or communicate to them about, trading certain things, this is, I think, a huge first thing. The second thing after that is consuming information, consuming engaging content online. So media is kind of like in terms of business models. And if you think about that, communication is largely monopolized by international organizations, being Facebook, being Google. The next thing, and Telegram and maybe some others, Twitter and co. The next thing that you can do is really media to reach a lot of different people across the continent. So I think media in terms of businesses, in terms of impact in Africa is kind of undervalued. Why? Because I think investors are always struggling to see a scalable business model that stands behind the media side of things. But I think, we and other people are trying to show that there is something to be done here. From an impact point of view, I think it's huge because, before the internet and the mobile internet, when you look at distributions of national newspapers in many countries across Africa, it's very small compared to the large population. So when you look at a country like Nigeria, again, I mean, Lagos, it's by the example of Nigeria. Before the internet, the largest newspapers had a distribution of under 100,000 a day, right? So under 100,000 a day for a population of 180 to 200 million. Now about 100 million people are in some way, shape or form on the internet in Nigeria. So they get their information through digital. A lot of them young people, they get information and they can then use it. So from my point of view, digitalization for media, a big thing. I think more people should look at that potential and say, how can I, maybe get my information out there with all the tools that are now available? Definitely, through social media, maybe building own websites that are mobile enabled and playing in that role. I think we need more media voices.
Absolutely. Rahel, you muted.
There is an issue of connectivity. I mean, everything we say is true, but we have to be careful that we don't exclude groups which are already excluded in the growth. And that is exactly what the informal sector is talking about. So the majority of people, I just was very surprised, who are connected to internet, they communicate, but they also consume information that are irrelevant. So there is a big problem in terms of digital literacy. So whether privacy, whomever, we have to teach our and I am very happy, Leonard, you're already doing that, that the information should be relevant and important and needed, and that should be used in the way that it's intended. So that's something that we need to care about. Apart from that, there are also issues of our exports sector is very much focused on specific sectors. So agriculture hopefully will be, a change maker that we actually seem to forget. I mean, the majority of our economy is based on agriculture, but we use really outdated methods to produce our food. So if we want to grow, I think we need to find a way to also welcome, technology that complements our people rather than substitute the workforce. So industries like mining, agriculture are very good example of the continent has a big wealth of this sector, but it's not well used, and the people who are working are not really getting quality jobs. It's dangerous jobs they are performing, they are underpaid. So I think, the number of people we create might be interesting, but we also have to understand the quality of jobs that are created are very important. And as much as I work with a lot of international NGOs, sometimes numbers are too important for them. So they say, okay, we train 2,000 people and have a 6 months job, and that's considered to be a job. So we as private sector players should also make sure that the jobs that are created are really sustainable, and the people on the ground actually benefit from the digital growth and whatever change is coming in this revolution. So that's actually my point, and I think we are going to also be having an issue with urbanization. Unless the governments are actually urbanizing smartly, if the majority of people in Ethiopia actually can find jobs only when they come to Addis and they only have internet in Addis Ababa, it would be not including all the people that need the jobs more. So let's not be too exclusive at this point. So not only people in the urban area should be benefiting from digital jobs. How do we make sure that people work from rural area with one small SSD phone, because not everybody has a digital smartphone as well. So I think there is a big way to go, and if we do really use the momentum to change our way of thinking, to include and to have infrastructure in place by the governments, and the private sector development is being part of the change, we can really create the jobs that are needed most, and we can compete on the international level. But without these investments, I think we will fail behind in this change as well.
Rahel, sorry, Bukola, I'm not sure if I can come in on Rahel's.
Okay, yes.
Just very quickly. And I agree with what you're saying, but this is what I'd like us not to lose. We are talking about a very diverse, segmented, when we speak about Africa and human capital and Africa and the economy, there's so many layers to it. So if we were to extract and interrogate each, there is a role, there are interventions for, let's say, rural areas that are not as integrated and don't have as much infrastructure. And there are innovations at the moment, like we were talking about the SSD code there. And then there is, what happens to youth that do have access, the kind of content they're accessing, and what are we talking about, the very skilled, human capital that can compete globally? What kind of infrastructure and support do they need to really be able to stand? And we cannot dismiss one for the other, nor overemphasize one to the other. We will sadly never get to a point where the entire country of any country in the world is going to be equal and is going to have access and is going to be included. So to appreciate that and look at each point at which we are situated and can influence and can really contribute towards, what is that sliver of a pie that I've chosen to run with? For instance, I'm equipping 100 million African leaders for global competitiveness. They're going to be, corporates. They're going to be the founders of startups. They're going to be the skilled, and there's a room for that. And I still have questions about why aren't you touching everybody else, which I did for 20 years. And for those I can justify, I will. There is a reason for that. They're ready right now to put Africa on the map in a different way. Right? And somebody else would say, I'm working with the grassroots. So there are gains all around. And I don't think they cancel each other, But now is our opportunity to then influence policy for that which we are running with, to really make sure that demographic and that market segment is really able to thrive, I think.
That's excellent point, Modesta, and it does sound like you took it right out of me. I was going to, let you all know that. I mean, we have just a few minutes left, but I think I'd like to hear from you all individually, right? I mean, your closing thoughts as we wrap up, but particularly, I'd like you to focus on your individual countries, right, and your individual sectors. And my question is, what sort of changes, what sort of specific policies, right, do you think the government needs to make, or what shift, to the private sectors in those specific areas that you are responsible for or that you focus on? What changes need to happen? What policies need to be in place for us to make this a reality, right, that everybody can benefit from? So let's start with you, Davis.
Fantastic. I think that's a really good question, and I'm going to try to be as specific as possible. So I work very actively in the skill development space for young people. And I'll just give you a bit of an insight as to some of the things we experience very quickly. So we train undergraduates, right, on how we help them acquire competencies and things of that nature, connecting them to markets, equip them with skills and things of that nature. Yeah, definitely. Now, for those group of people, what we found out from our internal data is 60% of the people we're able to influence are people that are located in Lagos and Abuja. So going to what Rahel said about the people in the rural area, I think that one of the major things that changes that needs to be made, especially from a government perspective, is just create the enabling internet access. With internet access, a lot of problems will be solved, especially internet access across all rural communities across Nigeria. With that, we can take that as an advantage and begin to build on it and lay on top of it to create the kind of changes that we want to see.
Thank you, Davis. Leonard?
I think my advice would be for more governments to buy, so to say, all in with digitization. So like to really think about what competitive advantage we have across the continent, and kind of build enabling infrastructures for remote work to be done really well. Why is there not more graphic design being done from African countries for companies abroad? Why isn't there more development being done? And not everything is development. Not everybody needs to be a developer. I think there's a lot of work in terms of outsourcing that could be done. Mauritius is a country that has done that, quite successfully. Why isn't there a great outsourcing industry in Nigeria or in Kenya? Right. So I think buying all into digitization as a new way of earning revenue, earning tax revenue as well in the countries, I think would be my great advice. So that's not a policy or anything. I think it's just if governments and countries want to make more money and enable more of their citizens, I think they should look at the fact that there is a lot of there's a lot of great talent that just needs to be enabled.
Thank you. And then I have 30 seconds for you, Rahel, and over to Modesta right after.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity. I think I will be falling into repetition, but the whole thing being, let's educate our youth to compete on the international market. Digitization is very important. Connectivity being also very important. And let's also stimulate local innovation. And that is actually going to be the change maker.
Partnerships.
Thank you.
Partnerships for developing of ideas and partnerships for opportunities. There is something about demand that equips the suppliers, to deliver. So that is what I would say. Governments opening up to partnerships, to be informed of what is needed, and leveraging partnerships to create opportunities for people.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Bukola.
It's been, thank you. I think this was very exciting, and amidst all of the technology challenges, we managed to sail through. But I think what we've also, what we can take away from this session is we all identify that we have a very, very significant infrastructure deficit, across all of the countries in Africa. And this, needs to be fixed, right? Because it's on this week we can layer everything else, we've talked about. So call to action. Bano, maybe you can, pass this across on behalf of everyone to, the relevant governments. And of course, it's a call to action, for all of us, on this panel and all of the attendees. And the point is, in all of our little ways, in our own little corners, we should see what we can do, in terms of enabling all of the build up of the infrastructure, digitization, partnerships, and all of the things we've discussed today. So again, a big thank you. A number of the questions, my panelists have been really gracious in responding to the questions in the chat room. So I didn't bother to go into all of those in detail again. So thank you for joining us today. And of course, enjoy the rest of the sessions during the African Innovation Week.
Thank you, Bukola. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, then.